All right. Good morning. We are live on Goaldigger, Finding Your Voice here on LinkedIn. I'm Cate Luzio, founder and CEO of Luminary. And for those of you who have watched or listened before, we are amplifying women and leaders' voices across industry and incredible things that they are doing at any stage of their career. And I am really excited because we have today two back-to-back episodes, but the first being one of our newest partners and the founder and CEO of She Speaks, Aliza Freud. So Aliza, welcome and thank you for being on today.
Well, thanks for having me.
I know 9 o'clock on a Friday, the weekend before a holiday, some people might say, what? But we all know that regardless of what's going on, we are all busy.
Yes, exactly.
So busy. So I was recently recorded Aliza's podcast and we were having a great conversation. We've done a couple of events with She Speaks, and you have, before we get to She Speaks and what you're doing in the mission, can you please just tell the audience, for those that are going to watch now or later when they download it, what sort of your career path and what led you to where you are today?
Sure. Well, it's going to be short because I really have only done two things in my entire career. I'm a marathoner, as they say. I am somebody who gets into something and tends to stay for a long time. So I basically, out of undergrad, I started at American Express. I got really lucky to get a position there that at a time when they were really only looking at MBA candidates. But somebody took a chance on me, a woman, of course, took a chance on me and brought me in, and it worked out great. I was there for about 11 years. And then I left to start my business, and which is She Speaks. And I've been doing this the other part of my career. So pretty short, but lots of stuff done in those 11 years that I think very much prepared me for what I do now.
I love that term, a marathoner, because today you don't have a lot of marathoners, especially in these two new generations between the millennials and the Gen Z. I think they look at careers in that 1 and 2 year, where like us, and I spent obviously almost 20 years in banking, albeit with 3 banks. And that was more from, getting more responsibility and more money, why I made the moves. But these ideas of a marathon and working in something for so long is sort of, it's not even on people's radars. But those 11 years at American Express, as you just alluded to, helped prepare you for your business. So can you talk a little bit about what the business is and how those 11 years at American Express really prepared you to be able to not only start your business, but lead it and grow it to where it is today?
Sure. So I'll start with the business part first. So She Speaks, today we are the largest female influencer community around available. But that's not where we started. What we started as a research platform. And I had been trying to figure out, I knew for a couple of years that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I had an entrepreneurial spirit, which I think served me very well at a big company like American Express. But at the end of the day, it's still not all about you doing it and you making it happen. There are so many capable other people at that company that if I left, it wasn't like, oh my gosh, we can't go on. So for me, I really wanted to build something. I'm a big believer in being the master of my own destiny. And I just felt like doing my own thing was going to be the way for me to achieve that. So when I launched, though, it really was about helping companies better understand what's going on in the hearts and minds of women. It was always about women. It was always hence the name She Speaks. It was always about women. But in the beginning, it was about helping companies do product testing, getting feedback from women, doing online focus groups, doing all of the stuff that companies were doing on the research side, quantitative and qualitative research. But what we realized pretty early on was that a lot of the women who were joining to be in our testing community, our product testing community, were what you now call influencers. They had blogs. They were very active in social media before other people were active in social media. So basically, what we are doing, what we've sort of evolved into, was realizing that there was an opportunity to tap into this community of women to actually help do marketing for these companies. So it wasn't just about getting their feedback. It was also about helping to promote those products. So we evolved to doing much more of that. Everything we do today is still grounded in insight. So that's a little bit of how, like, it's very much how we view the world, is understanding what women think about something and then figuring out how do we want to market it on behalf of the brand. But that's kind of how we evolved, and how American Express helped me get set up for that is, if you're a marketer, there is no better place in my experience to get the marketing know-how than a place like American Express. American Express, the brand is such a well-known brand. It is a well-respected brand. And so what you learn is, how do you market smartly? How do you reach a target customer in a way that makes a lot of sense? And that's very much what I do day to day, what we do day to day at She Speaks. Help our clients figure out what's the best way, what's the right message, what are the right channels, who are the right people to really promote whatever the product or service is that they're promoting.
So, and I completely agree with you. I have so much respect for American Express and the organization and what they do. I have a number of friends that have worked there and are still there. One of the things that I've seen over, my career is they are really a marketing organization versus a financial institution, right? Because of the depth and the breadth of what they do and who they talk to and their clients. While you were there, and that which led you to leading She Speaks, what sort of were you seeing clients not talking to women that made you sort of say, you know what, this is a big gap in the market, regardless of the product.
Yeah.
When no one's talking to women in the right way.
Yeah, great question. Yeah, it was basically what I realized is that at American Express, over the years that I was there, I was on a number of task forces that were like, what should we do about women? We need more female customers. What should we do about women? And first of all, I thought, why is this a task force? Like, how we do business. I understood from, the years that I was managing credit card portfolios, talking to our customers, that women were making the decisions about which, what the financial, what credit cards they should have. A lot of times they were in charge of paying the bills. So why were we not marketing to them in a bigger way? But just historically, American Express has been a male-oriented customer base. And what I realized is that if a company like American Express was starting to recognize that, wow, wait a second, we need to really understand how to win with women, then everybody must be figuring that out. So that was really the area. Understanding that if they saw it, then many other companies must be seeing it, was the thing that made me recognize that there was an opportunity to help them with it. Because even if you looked at marketing to women at that time, a lot of it was wrong. They were getting it wrong. And I thought, and I don't mean American Express, I mean other companies out there that were marketing to women. They just thought if they painted it pink, it was going to appeal to women. And I thought, well, there's so much more nuance to it than that. We can help. I can help this. And I recognized that if we gathered women in a digital way, and, this is when digital was starting to explode, then you could really get opinions as honestly as you could if you were standing in a room talking to somebody. So that was kind of the evolution of it.
But when you think of that's what year was that you started this? It started She Speaks?
2008.
2008. We're middle of the financial crisis, right? I was a banker. I was not thinking about how companies marketed to me at all, right? I wasn't thinking about that component. But now we're 12 years on from that, and companies are still getting it wrong.
Yep. Yep. Well, I think that there's a recognition that female consumers are important, that women are responsible for a significant part of the spend that is going on in this country. I mean, I'm just, of course, globally as well, but our expertise is here in the U.S. And there's a recognition that women are important as consumers, but I also think that there is also we're a little bit stuck in the ways of, we try to paint very broad strokes and say, this is what will appeal to these women. Because if you think about it, it is an easier way to go. It's easier to say, okay, how do we create some common denominators? The problem is that you cannot talk to female consumers that way. Women do not want to be talked to in that fashion, and I think it's the thing that's tripping up companies right now.
Well, I mean, we like to say at Luminary, one size fits none, right? And I get it; it's much more inexpensive to look at it that way, right? But if you really want to gain that consumer, that client, you've got to engage with them in a much more personalized way, right? Now, so really, when you think about Goaldigger and finding your voice, right, you had the courage to take all of what you had learned at American Express, 11 years, and say, I'm going to do this. What gave you it's not even courage, it's just the guts, right, to say, I know I can do this, and I can run my own company, and I can do this in a sense better, right? Because I know how to talk to these companies now. How did you find your voice as an entrepreneur and now a very strong and influential leader?
Yeah, I mean, I like to say that ignorance is bliss. I will say the one thing that working at a large company does not prepare you for is being an entrepreneur. It just doesn't. I mean, you can have an entrepreneurial spirit being at a big company that serves you very well. And I have to say, I believe that, having that spirit served me well at American Express, but you're still not learning how to be an entrepreneur. I ran a portfolio, and so I understood how to manage a P&L, but that doesn't mean that I know how to start a company and create a company that makes money. So that is the thing that I think, and that's the thing that I counsel a lot of female entrepreneurs about. You have to really understand, how is your business going to make money? And you have to have a path to making money. And even if you're a funded company, you need to have a path to being able to have a long-term business that operates successfully and profitably. Absolutely. And I think that's the thing that sometimes we don't do as good of a job, is understanding, it's like a wish and a prayer a little bit, like, oh, I believe that if I build this, they will come. You have to know that you are going to have a potential customer for your services. And I think importantly, I think for us, I had set up a couple of clients before I was building the platform, before I left American Express. And I already had a couple of clients lined up. Now, were they paying me what I thought I should be paid for those services at the beginning? No, but that's okay, because I was willing to say, okay, this is what I'm going to invest in making this business work. And I know that if I can get some good, strong case studies that with these clients that may not be paying me what I want to be paid, I will eventually have a path to profitability and larger sales. So that's, I think that's the thing that you have to really, when you're starting a business, you have to be able to recognize, okay, what do I have that I can use to fund this for a period of time? And Cate, you're in a similar situation. You had to invest in a space, making that space your own. That is not an inexpensive thing, right?
No. Yeah.
But you have to do that work, right? To sit down and say, okay, what's it going to take? And when, and and don't be too aggressive, because that will sink your plan before you've even started.
I teach this right every month in our business plan boot camp, and I'm astounded at how little people focus on the numbers and that, oh, my idea or my business, because we have to stop saying idea, I have a business, is going to all of a sudden just be amazing. And why market analysis and market research is so important, right? You're not the only one out there with this kind of business or idea. And understanding, I had, and I continue to have, a couple of versions of my P&L, a conservative version to an aggressive. And certainly 2020, no one could have prepared us for 2020 and everything that's happened. And so all of these different levers that you can pull, right, that could say, you know what, I've got to cut back here, I've got to manage expenses there, I can invest here once I've got that revenue and profitability. And I think that's a big piece that I talk about, is this idea of profitability. When do you start making money in the business, making money, not generating revenue, making money that affords you either to put it back into the business, hire staff, other investments. And, as we think about the women that you work with today, right, and this huge community at She Speaks, all of what you do, and what really, when we got introduced by a fellow Luminary member, Mimi Banks, so shout out to Mimi.
Love her.
What we really loved was that what you do is based on insight and research, and it's not just finger in the air, I think this is what's happening.
Right.
We talk a lot about, you and I in particular, around women supporting women. And can you talk a little bit about the insight that you found around women in business? Because you talk to so many of them.
Well, I think the insight you're referring to is work that we started doing right before the 2016 election. We knew that there was a female candidate for president, and we wanted to get a better understanding of how women thought about that. And we just started doing research and asking women, would you vote for a woman as president? And we were stunned at the percentage of women in our community. And we think of our community as, they're socially savvy. Yes, they're from all around the country and many different demographic, makeup within the population. But we were surprised by how many women said that they weren't sure that a woman could make a good president. And then we really started delving deeper into it to say, well, what is going on here? Why, what is driving this perception? We started breaking it into, okay, do women maybe not feel supported by other women? If women don't think that another woman could be president, maybe we're not as supportive of one another as we think we are. And so we started asking more nuanced questions about how women feel supported by other women in their personal lives, in the work environment, in their professional lives, and then, of course, politically. And what we found across the board is that women did not feel as supported by other women as we thought they would, right? And in particular, it was the worst in political, the second worst in your professional lives, and then the best in your personal lives. So we really were trying to dig into, okay, what is it in your professional life, as an example, that makes you feel like you're not supported by other women? And about 60% of women were telling us that they did not feel supported by other women when it came to their professional lives. And when we broke it down by age, the thing that was really alarming was that the younger you are, the less supported you felt by other women, meaning we're going in the wrong direction. The older women felt like they, maybe there was, they were still not off the charts positive about it, but the older you were, the more you felt supported by other women. The younger, as we got younger, it literally got lower and lower and lower. So that percentage who felt supported. So we thought, okay, we're not going in the right direction. This is we want it to be the other way around, that the younger women were starting to feel more supported. And that's been now, since we learned that, we've really been on a quest to understand what's driving it and what we might be able to do to change it. So, that's the data. And then, we're hoping that we'll make a dent and with companies like you, help make a dent in, changing perceptions and hopefully changing the reality for women.
Well, let me dig into that a little bit, because, as we know, there are, certainly we're making progress, and hopefully we'll continue to, even with some of the alarming statistics, I like the word alarming, around women leaving the workforce in September and October, but that there are still fewer women at senior levels, right? Mm-hmm. So the higher you get, you're surrounded by a lot less women. Mm-hmm. We also know that there's some competition there too, but taking that aside, do you think this younger generation, because I hear often that, oh, well, they just think of each other as equals, but as a woman, you're surrounded by many, many more women. Do you think that has to do with the numbers too? So you've got a bigger group of women when you're younger, because that's how you start out. Mm-hmm. And then as you rise through, you've got less. You also have the opportunity to really develop relationships through that career path, and who you can trust and who's credible and who you can lean on. Do you think that has anything to do with it?
I think that the issue with younger women, and this is based on doing more research, is a little bit is entrenched in anthropological issues. Mm-hmm. That when you're younger, you're out there sort of looking for maybe a partner, a life partner, and going back to how the females had to compete with other females to get the male. I think, and I know that sounds seems very strangely outdated, but based on really digging, the number one thing that we're finding with younger women, again, and we start at 18 years old. So, and by this younger cohort, that it's the hardest with is 18 to 24. That, and then, gets a little bit better as you get older, but there's a lot of just set up competition. And I think also they're still so close to being in high school, where there's more of that social and just learning about, what relationships might be like. And it's set up, I think, a little bit more competitively. And I think that's what happens as they come into their late teens, their 20s, and then, even into their 30s. It's really very interesting when you really pull back the onion, and that is one of the things that we've seen as like the basis for it.
I think you're seeing that quite a bit too with women entrepreneurs, right? Mm-hmm. Because society says there can be one of these that are successful, right? I mean, mm-hmm. we see it with us as a women's community, and everyone automatically comes to and says, who's your competitor versus who do you collaborate with, right? Mm-hmm. And I harp on this all the time. It's easy to compete. It's super, and I'm competitive. Like mm-hmm. I'm the ultimate competitor, mm-hmm. but I'm not competing against other companies. I want those companies to succeed. Mm-hmm. What I'm competing for is to make real change, obviously to be profitable and generate revenue and hire more people and create mm-hmm. economic impact. But this idea of collaboration over competition, we've really got to get focused on this, both mm-hmm. within companies and at entrepreneurs, but at a much younger age, right? Mm-hmm. We can't just wait till they're out of college to say, oh, now let's focus on this supporting each other. It's got to start from day one.
Yeah, I could not agree with you more. And I love your approach to that, the collaborations versus competition, because I think if you have that attitude of how can we help, and I have to tell you, I think I see this in the influencer world, right? Mm-hmm. There is a little bit of this faction of the competition, but then when you look at the influencers who really are setting themselves apart, and I'm very lucky that we get to work with a lot of them. Their mission is to be generous and help other women who not have to fall down in a place that they fell down. Like,
Right.
why can't we be, be supportive of each other? And, the other thing that I think is important to say about this is I do think that when you take that approach, when you change your approach to this and say, okay, what if I were to help you? And as opposed to feeling like you're my competition, what if I were to help you? There is so much that you personally gain from that. And this we have found when we've talked to influencers who are doing this, who are living this way, that they just feel like it helps them in their business. In their business, it is helping them because they are just their approach is generosity, and it fills them in a way that competition just, I think, in particular for women, because we are so earnest, right? I think the competition thing, I think it drags on us. I think it is not intuitive for us. It's not the way we want to be.
Right.
And if you take this other approach, I really think that what we're seeing is that it can fill you. So
yeah, and I think this is at the heart of, if you go back to your American Express days and everything that you're doing, it's really getting the true, authentic who women are at the core. Talking to that. It's not just about who do I sell to and how I sell to them, but it's this authenticity that, I think even within brands we're starting to see, and as sort of a final question, I mean, as we know now, it's very hard for brands to get away with not talking to their audience, right? And also bullshitting them, right? Yeah. So are you, since the pandemic started, and the clients you work with and the influencers that you work with, are you seeing a difference in how companies are truly walking the talk?
Yes, we're definitely seeing more of that. But I would say also that companies need to be careful about suddenly deciding that they are on this mission that is not really backed up with anything. Just saying something is going to actually get you in more trouble than if you said nothing. And what I think the companies that I think are doing it well, first of all, focus on what you bring to the table. If you're a consumer packaged goods company, if you sell a tampon based product, you can have things that you say that are about being, making the world a better place for women. And there are some amazing companies that are out there starting to do that now, but also recognize what it is that you're selling. Right. At the end of the day, you're selling a product. So talk to me about the benefit of what that product brings to me in my life. And you can tell me about the good you're doing, but make sure it's rolled into what your broader messaging is. And I think that's where companies need to really go in general, is focus on how this product makes my life better, easier, different, whatever that is. Yeah. Don't focus on features. Don't focus on the benefits. Tell me why this is going to make my life better and how you're making the things I care about better. In that context, it works well.
It works well. Well, you're clearly doing that in your organization. I know I put your Twitter handle on here, but where can, for those, and we have, by the way, you have some very big fans that are commenting in the chat about what She Speaks does and what you're doing. And certainly we're super proud to partner with you and She Speaks at Luminary. But where can people find out more about She Speaks and you?
Well, if you want to find me, I'm most active on LinkedIn. So you can just find me Aliza Freud, Aliza Frud, on LinkedIn. And then in terms of the company, if you want to learn more about She Speaks, you can join. You can go to shespeaks.com and join, and feel free to reach out to us. We love talking to women. We love, it's what we get up in the morning and live for.
Well, we are so excited too. And I would encourage anyone that's watching, listening, downloading later to go to shespeaks.com. There is so much information and great insight. And certainly, the synergies around what we're doing together are abundant, and we're excited for the next event with She Speaks. Aliza, and thank you so much for joining today, and hopefully we'll see you soon, and maybe eventually in person.
Yeah, sounds great. Thank you
so
much.
Have a great weekend and happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah, same to you.
Great. Bye. All right, bye-bye. And now we're adding Miss Justina Michaels. So we are in, for those of you who are watching and listening, we are back-to-back Goaldiggers on Friday, the weekend before Thanksgiving, because we will not have Goaldigger next Friday. I deserve a break too, just like all of us do. But we are amplifying voices of all types of leaders and women, business owners, career, marathoners, as Aliza said, who stay in their one career for a very long time. But Justina is and has been a member and an ambassador to Luminary for quite some time. And I'm really delighted because she's not only a member of our community, she's become a really great friend. And despite being separated by COVID and the digital atmosphere, she has been one of our biggest champions. And so we are so happy to have you on today, Justina.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm so happy to be here.
Good morning. Good morning. Okay. And so we're going to get right into it because you have one of the most interesting stories to what led you here today in your as a business owner and an entrepreneur. And also we'll get into the COVID effect. But let's talk about you and sort of where you came from to get you to the point you are today as the founder of an amazing and incredible events company that is changing the way it's looking at things for the future.
Yeah, I do have a pretty unique story. I was not a natural entrepreneur for sure. I certainly wasn't one of those little girls who dreamed of having her own company. I loved having a team in school. I loved working with other people. I always imagined myself in a very big team environment, but I was drawn to art as a child. And so that's what I pursued in college. I'm a very, very proud graduate of Bryn Mawr College, one of the 7 sister colleges here in the US. And it really sort of fostered this curiosity in me about the arts. And so I started out there. I started out working in museums and galleries, and I absolutely loved it at the time. It was interesting to dive into the art world and figure out what that was all about and use, everything I had learned to understand how art was perceived in the world and presented. But it was at the time lacking something in me in terms of creativity, which I had as a child and sort of lost in college in the business of trying to figure out how to make money when you're interested in art, which is always a challenge. So yeah, I really sort of was trying to figure it out. I thought I was, like many people, going to go back to graduate school as sort of a Hail Mary to what you do when you're lost in your career, trying to figure out if another degree will help you sort of be more competitive in the field that you thought you should be in, because it's all you've ever known and all you thought you were good at doing. Nobody really told me what I was good at doing all the time. So I just figured art was it. But fortuitously, I was working in an art gallery, and my sister, who I'm very close with, she's a twin, got engaged in Paris of all places, which was a wonderful life moment for our family, of course. But she asked me to come help as the creative one in our family, to come help her plan a wedding and design the wedding, which is the part that I was pretty jazzed about.
The part is as the creative one. I love that.
Yes, as a creative one. And so I jumped at the opportunity to use my creativity and to use my brain in a really different way and to contribute more. I really, from a very young age, wanted to be an essential part of a company and a business. And so when I was working in art galleries, I was a small fish in a very small pond to some degree, but you had to stay in your lane. Everyone had their jobs. And certainly in a museum, it takes a very long time to get to the point where you're making real impact. And so that was important to me. So I dove in. I said, yes, of course I'll help you. And I flew to Paris a few times, and we did all the things that you do when you're planning a wedding. And I learned a ton, but it was fun but stressful at the same time, and I learned a lot. I learned so much about how to balance, how everything fits together. But it was an incredible sort of aha moment for me of, oh wow, I think I'm good at doing this. I think I could be really good at doing this. And I could see the results of all of this hard work that I had put in and all of these moments I had of excitement, putting all these different pieces together really came together. And so I came back, to New York, and I tried to figure out if I was really going to pursue a new career in event planning. And then I did. I really just said, all right, I have to try. I have to try to figure out what this is that's really good for me. And I think it could be something I really love for a very long time. And it turns out that that was true. So yeah, I figured out how to do this. It took me 2 years to figure out how to dive in. That was definitely a tough period for me of, trying to figure out if I was going to intern for someone, if I was going to, copy someone else and
right.
climb my way through what everyone does when they're trying to shadow other people and learn. But I had a very stubborn streak. I was 26 at the time and I didn't want to work for anyone else. And as an artist, you're taught never to imitate anyone. So that was really ingrained in me that I had to do this on my own. I was going to fall flat on my face and it was totally fine. And I was going to fail, hopefully not too badly because it's someone's wedding. You don't want to screw that up. But I was going to learn on my own and figure out the best way to go about this and then the best way to build a business. And so I did it on my own. I worked as a nanny for 2 years, which I'm really proud of, taught me amazing project management skills. And it was a great experience. So I don't regret any of it. All the time it took me to sort of get there was well worth it.
But that is not, that's not actually the normal story. I mean, your story in general is not, it's non-linear, it's lots of different paths, but that 2 years that you just talked about, right? So most people will say, okay, I'm either going to keep my full-time job and have a side hustle. And then eventually when I can make money on that side hustle, I can quit my job. But you really took that 2 years to kind of figure out, are you going to, work for someone? Is that the best route? Are you going to, shadow? Is that the best route? But also to really fully develop the plan of the business. And most people just kind of jump, right? They don't take that length of time in order to prepare themselves. So you really took time, even though you were doing, you were a full-time nanny, but you were really preparing yourself to launch your business.
Yes, I was very much preparing mentally as much as anything else, because for me, there's great responsibility in having your own business, and it's not something I ever dreamed about doing. So I was, a little terrified of trying to figure out how I was going to juggle all of these things. But I was also fascinated with an industry I never thought I was going to be a part of. And I wanted to understand the ins and outs of it. I wanted to, just understand how people went about approaching events to figure out what kind of events I wanted to focus on or what that environment really looked like, and just take a step back so that I could understand it holistically from my perspective of what this really looked like and where I could be of service. Because for me, I've always wanted to be of great service to other people. That's always been really important to me. I was in community service in school, and I wanted to make sure that I had an impact. And so figuring out how that impact was going to be made took me sort of 2 years to really take the dive in and make sure that I was really being of service to others and filling a void in the market where, I didn't know the market at all. So 2 years seemed relatively short to figure that out.
So most people will say women are risk averse, right? That's such a generalization and a term that's put on us like many others. But you took a very calculated risk, right? Measured approach, took that time. Market analysis is huge for any business. Market understanding. So Fitting Fettes was born when?
It was 9 years ago. I suppose I started 9 years ago at the wedding, but I always use that name. I developed the company name, but yeah, it was 6 years ago that I actually officially started the company and made the actual leap from start to finish, from when we started planning a wedding to actually launching as my company and something that I put out in the world as just me, that I could service others and plan their events.
And we're going to get to your experience sort of this year and where you are and what you're looking at for 2021. But, not having the business background, And this is also, oftentimes a lot of entrepreneurs will say, I don't have the business background. I know I have a great idea. You knew you would have a great, not only idea, but business. You didn't have that necessarily that business background. How have you found your voice as really a sophisticated, what's the word I'm looking for? Unbelievable experience that you create for the events, not only the weddings and everything that else. How have you found your voice as a business owner, a woman business owner, as someone in this field?
Yeah, it's definitely been a journey. I certainly took anything and everything that was coming my way for, the first few years, really, just to figure out what it is that I could offer and what kinds of events I really wanted to focus on. But for me, meeting other female business owners was really important, and it could be in any field, but I was always a good networker. I love people. I've always loved people. I've always been very observant of them and perceptive. And so anytime I could put myself in a room of other people to understand, their confidence levels, how they go about business, that was always something that I was drawn to and interested in terms of figuring that out. But I think because I've always wanted to understand what I was getting myself into and understand people, once you understand people, you can be successful in any business. Once you understand what people need from you and how you can really truly assist them in a way that is impactful and meaningful. And most of my career has been spent in social events, so weddings is a big part of our business. And I love that I can figure out for every single couple what they need specifically, and we get to start over with a brand new customer. So that excitement keeps me very much in the event space, because it's never boring. It's always a good challenge. There's always something new I didn't know could go wrong. There's always something new that I have to tackle to pull off for an event in a brand new way. But finding my voice, I think, was relatively easy because I always wanted to start working. I always wanted to get out there and start seeing. But once you can see the impact, it's easier to talk about how much you love your job and inspire other people to take ownership over their work. I think women just don't give themselves credit for what they're doing because we're underpaid. So it's hard to put value in that. And for a long time, because I switched careers, I didn't know how much value to put in my career and my work as opposed to anything else that I was doing in my life. So working up the courage to have the conviction over what I was doing and taking credit for it. It took me a long time to accept compliments of you
right
off. Like, this is you. And even, the father of the girls I nannied for was like, you raised these kids partially because, I was there just doing my absolute best for them all the time. And when I do something, I just dive in fully. So I think taking a more family approach in a way to my events, of seeing it from the host perspective, the guest perspective, all of these different things have helped me feel much more confident selling my services, but also just speaking very eloquently about why I went into this and why it's important for me to own my own business, because I don't want to be beholden to other people in a way that doesn't speak true to my skill sets and what I feel I can really offer other people. And that's hard when you're working for another company. It's a real challenge that you have to overcome in finding your voice as well. So I almost feel that being an entrepreneur is easier because I know exactly what I do every day and I know where all of that hard work goes. And so, of course, it took me my 20s to figure this out, but I'm so proud of what I do now.
Which I love hearing you say that. I love hearing anyone say they're proud of what they do. They're proud if they're a teacher, if they work at a company, if they own a company. I love that pride. You mentioned, women being underpaid, and I think Deb Boulanger, who's a fellow member at Luminary, and she and I talk about this a lot. We talked about it last week on her Goaldigger, that women business owners earn 30 cents on the dollar of their male peers, and there are plenty of male event planners and wedding planners out there. Sure. As you talked about, sort of, knowing what you're worth, right? And knowing that, you could command as you built your business. How hard are those discussions for you when you're talking to your clients? Or is it now what you're doing for the company, what you're doing for the couple and the family, that this is what it is, and kind of, I'm doing this and this is my business?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still on that journey to some degree. I think I'm much more confident in the value I provide, but I tend to provide a premium service, which is difficult as a human being who deeply relates to others who may not have the funds to hire me. So I think Deb is a great example because she really inspires people to have value behind what they do and to not apologize for it, which is really wonderful. And I'm grateful for every single woman I meet who feels the same way about what they do. So I'm always interested to learn different industries and what that looks like. But for the events industry, it can really range. And a lot of people will undercut, obviously, just like any other industry, just to make money and sort of, be on the playing field, so to speak. So for me, I'm sort of in this in-between of, because I value my clients, when they pay me more, I appreciate the work that we're doing together because it's much more respected and we're on an even playing field. So that has really helped me keep to my prices, make sure that I am using my time wisely, because I discovered very early on that if someone paid me $2,000 or $20,000, I was going to do the exact same work for them.
Right.
Because my work ethic doesn't change and my care of people and making them happy doesn't change in that entire process. So, if it's the same sales process in some ways, then you want to go for the 20,000 and know that you can deliver on that. So I like to price things holistically in my company just to make sure that I'm giving people everything they need and nothing that they don't. But it's been much easier in the last, let's say few years to really articulate where the value is. And that helps so much with pricing.
Well, it's interesting that you say that. Right before you talked about care, Susie Raish from Luminary is on LinkedIn, and she said, bottom line is that you care. And that's so important in the events business, but probably every business. And just that analogy of whether you're charging the $2,000 wedding or the $20,000 wedding, you're going to put the same amount of effort and care into it. And that's so important. Because at the end of the day, you're thinking about the experience of the customer, not yourself, right? That you're putting everything into that. I want to switch gears a little bit to this year.
Yeah.
You're in an industry that has been probably if not one of the hardest hit. Weddings were canceled. I know, we've talked about this. This has been going on since the beginning of the year, really. Yeah. So what has kept you going and how are you adapting? I'm so over the word pivot. Yeah. I talked about this quite a bit yesterday. Pivot means you change directions and you're completely doing something else. No, you're adapting. You've adapted to the situation. So walk us through what you've been doing and where you see this going.
Yeah. Our industry has definitely taken a very big hit and a big toll. And it's been a journey for us as well in terms of everyone in this industry trying to figure out what is best. I think I have come from a place of crisis mode where I was just, helping people cancel, postpone, re-envision, downsize. We were doing a lot of that for the spring into the summer. And that was just my sort of hyper mode of let's help you figure this out and just be a human being right now and make sure that we can help you salvage these events that you've also worked hard at. And this is teamwork for me as an event planner. I don't just work for my clients and they show up. This is a real team effort. We're often on the phone, for many, many, many hours every week. And so COVID hit and we were on the phone every day, every single one of us, talking about what we can do to better support them and have them weigh in on their emotions. I think it became a much more emotional business for me of it's not, you maintain a client professional relationship, but at the same time, these are wonderful people that are struggling with, the disappointment of all of these events being canceled. And so we, kind of figured this out at the beginning of trying to patch things up. When it continued, and it was even harder for the events industry because of all the money lost and all of the events canceled, the emotional toll really started to accumulate because then there's delayed disappointment. And then, you start to get this kind of fatigue of everything happening where people don't know how to put any emotional stock into an event anymore because there's so many ways it can go wrong or be canceled or, sort of re-envision.
Right.
So for me, I had to take a step back and think, why do I do what I do? And how can I help salvage the best parts of events for other people? And to me, live is always best, of course. I love the energy of people in a room. But if we can figure out a way to do that virtually, or we can connect other humans to one another, that is the most important part of having a shared experience. And the holidays is a good example, because everyone looks forward to the holidays as this really wonderful time to reconnect and end your year and sort of have these special celebrations and traditions. And I feel very strongly that people have to still have those moments, because we're still here and we're living and we're trying to figure this all out and power through all of it. So it's important to really, take a step back from all of this and figure out, as an industry and also as an individual who has a business, how can I still serve a community that very much needs planners? I mean, you need a lot of support to get through the logistics of this changing environment in different states. I work all over the country and the world, so we have a lot of different dynamics to juggle here. And we really just have to be people first, and we have to serve our communities. So for me, that's always been the heart of how I'm taking this approach. And the silver lining of the situation, which I didn't expect, is that as much as I loved my job before, I know I love it now, because I miss it every day. I miss the energy of my industry. The events industry is very strong, and we're all very supportive of one another, and we help each other out, and we figure out how to make these wonderful events happen for many different individuals and companies and organizations. So I have seen everyone come together, and I'm very proud to say that a lot of my friends have just emotionally supported one another, and everyone that I know has really come together to try to do what we can to keep all of our businesses afloat, but to make sure that we are not killing the excitement of the events industry and as a whole.
Yeah, and it's hard, right? It's hard to wake up every day and say, what's the next thing that's going to happen? Are you looking, as we look into 2021, are you seeing that people are going to, when and if they have their events, they'll be smaller? Hopefully there's this vaccine and multiple vaccines, actually. What do you, as a business owner and someone that's sitting in the heart of the industry, what are you seeing for 2021?
So for 2021, at the moment, I think the first 6 months are still up in the air. The second half of 2021 feels a lot more concrete, and everyone is feeling a lot more hopeful about the vaccine actually being a factor, which is a big one, because, we understand that the events industry has contributed to this problem initially, before people were wearing masks, before we sort of understood the gravity of the situation. So I take great responsibility as a planner in knowing that we are keeping people safe first and foremost. So whatever measures we have to take until June, let's say, we will take in order to still provide a service that is necessary, with the precautions that the CDC and any other governmental or state recommendations are provided. So there's some hope that the second half of next year will be much more stable, much more predictable. As a planner, you plan ahead knowing that you can guarantee something in the future, and that hasn't been the case in 2020, which is very difficult for someone who prides themselves on providing security and support for something that may be very far in the future. So for us, I think going into the spring, we are taking a different approach in terms of looking at all of the different changes, all of the different measures that we need to take, and still just keeping those in mind, but not canceling events if we don't have to, because there's certainly a lot of wonderful opportunities to, there other people, but we are taking a more measured approach for the beginning of the year, because of the vaccine and because of the distribution issues. We're just trying to make sure that, at least for my company and my team, we want to keep people safe. So whatever we have to do to keep people safe is far and above and beyond the design elements we want to pull off, or the parties that people, would love to have without masks on. That still has to be the balance for us in terms of moving forward right now.
And and it's super in line with what we're doing at Luminary, right? While we have this now global digital community, and we will continue to invest in that, we still also have the physical space that we have to make sure at first and foremost our community and our staff are safe. And when events come back, we'll do that the same. We will follow those guidelines. And I think there is such a need for connection, and we know this just by being on all of these Zooms. There's going to be this hybrid model for a long time, until the next pandemic or crisis. Hopefully that will be not anywhere near in the near term. But there's a question that came in that I think is really important to ask, and is, what advice would you give creatives, since you are a creative, in finding their journey in business?
Their journey in business. Yeah, I would say community is probably my first and, going to be my answer forever, is that finding other people who've walked this path before you to balance out the creative part that you want to pursue, that you feel you're best at, and then figuring out the business side of it, but also support. Delegation is important. I knew pretty early on that I couldn't do everything. And because I didn't come from a business background, I didn't want to do everything. So I had tried to structure, my company and the business to make sure that I had support, even if it was a tiny bit of support. Even if you were paying someone $5 an hour to do something, that's a little bit more of your time where you get to put your creative energy into something. Yeah. And creatives need a lot of time to think. I started taking 2 years ago, not this year, of course, but like a workation, which is like one of my favorite things that I tell everybody about now.
Yes.
Because I needed an entire week to not answer emails, to not do invoicing, not to do the little things in a business that take up a lot of my time or other people's time, but to just think as a creative, to come up with new color palettes, to, dream about the way I want to move the company forward. And so that takes a lot of time and energy, and it's draining. And so if you're doing too much, you're never going to love the creative part of what you're doing. And so as someone who came from the arts and was a sculpture major and loves 3D, I'm channeling my love of those creative aspects into a 3D event world, which I'm so happy to do now. But if you're, a crafter or someone who really needs to be creative every day to be happy, you have to find a way to give yourself all the time that you can spare to do that, so that you don't burn out, because otherwise burning out is pretty easy to do.
So I remember when we first talked about this workation, because you were going off, going and doing a workation. I was like, what do you mean? And this is such a unique and innovative idea, right? Because especially for those that are entrepreneurs or leading businesses within another company, you are running every day, all the time, right? It's like, I've got meetings, I've got clients, whatever, I've got emails, and that idea of not having time to think and what's next and really invest in what you want to come out of the business. I mean, this is a class we have to teach at Luminary.
Yeah, I really highly recommend it. And I have to say that this year is different for many reasons, and I miss the hustle. Like as someone who didn't want to be an entrepreneur, let's say from the get-go, I now thrive off of that. I thrive off of, my 5 different meetings and running into someone at Luminary, and just the balance of all of the dynamic parts of my job. But you do need a break. And what I've discovered because of the pandemic and needing to be home more is that I just have to learn to do it for myself. The discipline you need to have to carve that out. I had a conference this week, and it was such a pleasure to spend 2 days learning. It was just so nice to give yourself that gift of figuring out what's good for you and what you can do. And I think learning is an important part of any business owner's journey, is just really taking some time for yourself. So I highly recommend, workation can be in your own home, but it means limiting distractions from your personal life and your clients and all of those other things, or delegating them to others, to really give yourself that thinking space. And it's been so life-changing for me. I will never stop doing them now, because it's been so wonderful.
Well, you know me, where I'm going to follow up on this one. And I think this is, we could start something in January on how to structure and take a workation. And there's a bunch of comments in the chat, a workation. I love that idea. Such a great idea. We all need permission to have a workation. So Justina, how can people find you and Fitting Fets? Where's the best way?
So I love Instagram. Obviously, we're very visual. You can see a lot of our work and details and sort of the ins and outs behind the scenes of the company. So it's at Fitting Fets on Instagram, and then our website is fittingfets.com. So FITTINGFETES.com. Yes.
All right. Well, I have been fortunate to see you a few times since you've come into Luminary, since we've reopened, but hopefully we'll see each other soon. Justina, thank you for being on Goaldigger. Thank you for being a part of our community, and such a wonderful human being at the heart of everything that you do. For all of you watching, next week we will be off. It is Thanksgiving. So like Justine said, give yourself permission to take some time off, even virtually, be with your friends and family. Please wear a mask and stay safe, stay healthy, and have a great weekend. Justina, hopefully we'll see you soon. Thank you again.
Sounds good. Happy Thanksgiving. Thank you so much for having me.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.